My front shock is dribbling. The bike's only been here a few minutes. Shot from underneath shows you definitely the shock. Hey everybody, it's Tony. I do stuff. The GT is giving me issues again. I scoured the internet looking for a video showing me how to do this. I guess maybe no one's actually done it and took the time to put it on camera. So I'm gonna do it. Demonstration of this electronic suspension black magic. With the ignition off and none of the electronics activated, I can bounce this thing, and you notice how the front has some movement, the rear has very little. I'm going to turn the ignition on right now, and all of a sudden everything gets cushy. The front's soft, the rear is soft, so whatever electronic stuff is going on, it is happening. Ignition off right now, and notice the rear has very little movement. The front still has some give in it. I don't know if that's normal, but we'll compare it once I've replaced it. Electronic suspension. I don't know what it's going to take to change it. Never done it before, but I'm willing to jump in both feet and go for it. Eyes wide shut. Taking y'all along with me. Can't get the tank out yet because they molded this tank to take up every little crevice. Got to take this side part of the fairing off. Here's the rest of the tank, and it's being blocked by this part of the fairing. You can't tell how heavy this thing is when it's on the bike. That's a testament to BMW's chassis design. But this tank is heavy. I mean, it holds, what is this, 26.5 liters. I don't know what that is in gallons, but it's a lot. This is what I've had to pull off so far. A lot of Tupperware, as the guys down under refer to it. There's a lot. So far, just common hand tools. Thanks, BMW. Most of the fasteners are all the same size. At first glance, here's the top of the shock absorber. And there's one bolt that goes through that supports that thing. And there's the body of it down in there. When I look from the bottom, though, it's not looking good for me. To gain access to that shock, I'm going to have to take the lower ball joint at minimum loose, and the linkage that connects the front steering strut arm, the big major member that holds the front wheel and connects it to the handlebars. I believe that once I do that, there may be enough room for me to pull this cap up and disconnect the lower ball joint. There's the control arm and there's the radiator, and I'm pretty sure that control arm is going to have to come down in order for that shock to come out of there. The radiator seems to be providing some interference to that lower control arm, so I may have to drop the radiator. When I take that front strut that supports the wheel off, what's going to support this bike? Because it's definitely not going to be the center stand. So, got to look around, see what I got. Got an idea. It's a little flexy there. Oh, be quiet. I'm going to bring these supports closer in. It will be more inconvenient, but this will be sturdier. I would call that some backwoods engineering right there. So I'll be able to take all of the main components off without fear of the bike falling. Pays to be a pack rat. Extreme pack rat. Something I've learned after a lot of years of working on stuff, especially things with multiple fasteners, is fasteners that I can put back in their original places, I try to do, because you're not going to remember all this stuff. Especially the ones that are different lengths, like these. They have little shoulders on them. See these in the top of the gas tank, for instance, different sizes. Got to remember where they go. I now have better access to the lower ball joint, the lower control arm. That one's going to have to come out for me to get this unit out. I have to disconnect this sensor line that goes to my anti-lock brake system. Also, the brake lines are connected to this main unit. This wishbone casting, this connects the handlebars to the front strut that supports the wheel. There's a Torx bolt right here. Yep, that was relatively easy. I have no idea what the torque spec is for this. It felt like it was about orangutan tight. That's a little tighter than monkey tight and not quite gorilla tight. Once I get the fastener out, I'll see if there's any locking compound on it. Yep, you can see they use some green locking compound, so I'll put something back, most likely blue. Access not as easy over here. Got a lot of computer and modules and stuff in the way, so I'm gonna have to go underneath. I'm having a terrible time with this ratchet. All this computer stuff's in the way, but it looks like there's only about 3 fasteners that hold this stuff in. So I'm going to pull them out and see if I can get some clearance so I can get a ratchet and an extension in there. Wiring harness is connecting this computer and everything is being held up by the horn. Coolant reservoir had to come out as well, but that got us access. Tough fight, but I got it out. Looks simple enough. It's just a big nut. A 7mm Allen. I've got the nut off of the lower ball joint. The upper ball joint, however, is very difficult to get to. I don't have a wrench that can get up there, and see that little hole of daylight right there? There's the nut, but I don't really have any access to put a wrench or a socket in there. What I decided to do is remove the bolt from the lower control arm, see if that sucker will drop down anymore, and maybe that'll give me enough access to release this ball joint, possibly swing this control arm, not control arm, this front strut out of the way, and maybe I'll be able to get to the shock without even taking the upper ball joint apart. That's all a theory. This is the other side of the lower control arm. These threads are really boogered up. I don't see any damage to the bolt. I see some remnants of thread locker. I'm gonna chase them. I don't know if I can salvage them. Looks like there's enough room sticking out. I can put a nut on the end. So that's gonna be my backup plan. As I suspected early on, the radiator is stopping the lower control arm from going down low enough for me to get this shock out of here. I'm going to disconnect it at the top and see if there's possibly enough clearance to raise it and get it over. But first, I need to get this connector off of here. To get this connector off, I want to confess, I did not figure this out. I saw it on the website. Now, I can't show it to you there, but I can show you now. There's just a little tiny nipple that sticks up here, and all you got to do is move it over. And you see how easy the thing just dropped right out of there. Let's hope this one is not all boogered up. Okay, it's not warm. The threads look really good. I was moving stuff around so much that I started worrying about damaging this position sensor. This is the sensor that determines how high or how low the bike is, in front at least. So I decided to go ahead and take that off. Unfortunately, even with the top shock mount out, it looks like we're striking the steering damper, and even if I did move the steering damper, there's still not enough clearance up there for me to lift this shock to clear this lower control arm. I've got to drop all this body work and see if I can lower the radiator. I think I might have picked up a few pebbles of gravel here. I've got the radiator dropped down probably, a good inch. Let's try it. We have shock extraction. Almost. And there it is. That was a challenge. I like this bike. It's great when it's running and you don't have to take it apart. But man, when you've got to work on this thing, it's tough. I realize why mechanics charge so much. Appreciate your mechanics, the good ones. Off screen, there's a box with a brand new tractive suspension front shock absorber, supposed to be a direct replacement for the original. Not tonight though. See you in a little bit. Yeah. What do we got here? Cookies from the land where my suspension was born. Okay. Also an owner's manual with some cool attractive decals. Make your toolbox look sporty. Got this cool tool, multi-bit tool. Custom tractive logo on it. And the star of the show, the brand new dynamic electronic suspension control direct replacement shock absorber. Kind of looks like the box, doesn't it? That is cool. Okay, let's do some comparison here. Looking at these units side by side, I see some differences. Don't know how significant they are, but let's put them up on the workbench and take a closer look. Where the cable breaks out, that's different. I should say, or how the cable breaks out. It breaks out in the same place. They're both on the tail end of the shaft. The connector is absolutely identical, OEM. Coil springs are the same, 1/2 inch. I measured them with a cheap caliper. Top part of the shock physically looks different, but I think dimensionally it's the same. Has this cool tractive decal on it that I won't be able to see. Also, it's got a really neat preload adjuster ring. OEM preload appears to be pretty much set. Bottom shim or sleeve that goes into the control arm physically looks a lot different. The OEM shock has a sleeve on one side, a smaller shoulder. Now, if you remember, when I took this thing out, there was a shim in there. That's gotta go back in. The width, with my Precision Harbor Freight caliper, the OEM unit is wider by a significant amount. However, we cannot neglect that it has this spacer, and the machining may make it all come out right. There is a difference between one side and the other. This is going to go in like that. I'll only know when I put it in. Once the shock is installed, this adjustment will not be accessible. I hope it is preset. Got a cool little bumper in there for those times when I come down off of a wheelie. I don't ride wheelies. Not intentionally. Comparison complete. It's time to put these suckers in. Well, this one, not this one. I'm gonna take you apart and find out what's in you. Even though it says, do not heat or open. Things were looking pretty dirty in there as a result of the, the shock oil leak. So figure I cleaned it up a little bit. Actually a lot. Because there's just shock oil everywhere. When it came to these boogered up threads, what I decided to do after flushing the hole out and picking it was to run a bolt through from the opposite direction, clean out any debris that's in there, see if I feel any resistance, and if not, I'm going to go ahead and use the hole as it is. So it looks like after cleaning everything out, went in pretty good. No problem. Okay. Time for the tractive shock to go into its new home. That's going in a lot easier. Starting to encounter a little bit of resistance. I wrenched that hole out, but I wasn't able to pick it because of the angle. There it is. It finally bottomed out. Alright, gotta get this ball joint back in place. Alright. Now we will fight with the shock. As much as I have faith in the quality of this shock, this just does not look centered to me. I'm looking at how much thread is sticking out over here. It looks just a tad bit more than it was. And if I go by the casting, just general symmetry, that shock looks like it needs to be this way, just a little bit. The original shock had a shoulder on it, and just to keep things in reference correctly here, the shoulder was on this side and that little spacer went over here. I'm thinking it's about as thick as this washer, so I'm going to put this washer in there and then tighten it down, and I think that's going to move it over to where it's centered. It probably doesn't matter. It's $1,000 shock, so hey, let's get it in the center. It could just be my OCD kicking in, but that looks much more centered now. I clamped the OEM shock in the vise, and it has some wiggle room. They did design in some flexibility. You watch me take it apart. It's time to get back to work. I'm gonna put it back together. I'm gonna do this in hyper speed because you guys saw all the stuff I needed to do to take it apart. So here I go. Took me 2 days, but I got it done. The GT's back in one piece, and I don't have any screws or parts left. I did this whole job with just common hand tools. The only special tool, if you consider it special, is this makeshift thing that I made for my front axle. Other than that, things you'd find in the average do-it-yourselfer's toolbox. Ignition off, ignition on. Oh yeah, big difference. I noticed the front is stiffer with the ignition off than it was with the old shock. Ignition off. It really locks up. I mean, there's hardly any flex at all. So I did some good. The front shock went bad so gradually that I didn't even know it was going bad until I saw the fluid on the ground. This unit has lasted 29,400 miles. I have no idea how long the back unit is going to last. In the future, I most likely will invest in a rear unit, but that's a lot of money. I'm sure this one was over $1,000. I'm sure the rear one is going to be that much or more. It also has a electromechanical spring preload adjuster on it, as well as the dynamic electronic shock. I hope that you enjoyed watching the video. I did enjoy making it. I like taking things apart. Hopefully this will benefit somebody out there. Hopefully this showed you that if you've got some mechanical smarts about you, you can do this with basic tools and a little bit of ingenuity and a lot of patience. Once again, this is Tony, and I do stuff. I guess I can eat these biscuits now. Pretty good.